looked like the team was a lot bigger. I went to the website. You had a lot of people on the team.
Yeah, we've grown a lot, and it's an interesting time. Like, we're actually starting to push business off, and it's really weird. We're trying to hire organically, and I don't want to force bad hires. We could definitely hire more people, but right now, just trying to make sure the clients we do have are getting good quality work.
Hello and welcome to Make It, Move It, Sell It. On this podcast, I talk with company leaders about how they're modernizing the business of making, moving, and selling products. And of course, having fun along the way. I'm your host, Adam Honig, the CEO of Spiro.ai. We make amazing AI software for companies in the supply chain, but we're not talking about that today. Instead, today, we're talking with Jordan Nollman, the CEO and principal of Sprout Studios. Sprout is an amazing design studio focused on the visual and physical design of products. Jordan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. You guys work on some really cool products and help people really see what can be made of them. Maybe just tell us about a fun project that you guys have been involved with.
We just finished up a breathing coach for CVS, and a local client. We're in Boston as well. That was a pretty fun one. A lot of these projects take somewhere between usually about 6 months to get the innovation, get everything behind it, and then it's about another year and a half to market. It was really nice for us to kind of see that one come to market. That one kind of happened through COVID too.
And so a breathing coach, what is that all about?
It's basically a small pebble, a little bit, maybe the same size as your iPhone case or iPhone earbud case, but it's something that you kind of put in hand, and maybe before you're going to bed or if you're having a stressful moment at work, you kind of hold this and it kind of vibrates to slow you down and kind of has different vibration patterns that will make you kind of hopefully breathe easier.
Gotcha. So it's sort of like bringing I know there's a lot of people in like yoga and stuff like that who talk about bringing consciousness to the breath. And this is like physically reminding you of that. Is that kind of how that works?
Yeah, exactly. And for us too, it's nice to be in the wellness space. That was part of a project where we did probably about 20 different concepts in the wellness space. That was kind of lower hanging fruit. It's an easier, most of the stuff what we do is consumer electronics, and it's easier consumer electronic to create.
Yeah. So to your start, how did you get involved in all of this?
Great question. I have a very, very, I think a solid story here. It was really nice. It kind of came full circle the other day when it was about a year ago, we were pitching Hasbro for some business. So I really found industrial design junior year of high school, solid D- student, and I was really into the arts. So I was building a lot of stuff. I was into graffiti. I really liked toys. And my dad and my uncle, we went out for a Sunday morning brunch, and they were like, so, all right, you can't pump gas your whole life or whatever. What's next? And I said, I want to design toys. Didn't think much of it. Next weekend, we went out again, and my uncle kind of presented, I have a friend who's an industrial designer, and he says RIT is a really good school. And I said, okay. And then as fate would have it, the next week, the RIT advisor was at Framingham High School, and I showed up for the meeting, and within a year, I had a portfolio together. I got into school, really fell in love with industrial design, never got the toys. And then lo and behold, fast forward 20-something years, I'm sitting in a meeting with Hasbro showing pictures of me at graduation from high school, toys full of, mortarboard full of toys and all the toys that I've always collected, actually one in the back even. And yeah, it's great. So, actually finally getting to work with Hasbro and hopefully be designing some toys soon.
Yeah. And so how does, when you're thinking about designing something like that, I'm sure CVS had some requirements that they wanted, but where do you start when you want to design something like that?
So everything usually starts with research. With this one, CVS had a pretty lengthy, probably like 100-page overview and a year's worth of research in different categories. From there, we took a couple months to go through their research, do a little bit of our own, and then cherry pick the nuggets. That would be great product designs. So I unfortunately can't talk about any of the other ones. There will be a few more coming out, but this is the first one to come to market. So.
Oh yeah, we don't want you to tell us any secrets here. We'll definitely let you surprise everybody with that. So the idea is like it's a little thing that you hold in your hand, helps you remember to breathe. Do you sleep with it, or is it only while you're awake?
It's literally just something you put in your hand, so you can leave it on your bedside table. You can put it on your office desk, depending on where you are. But it's meant to kind of fit in your pocket as well if you want to bring it to the office. It's a tiny little product.
Gotcha. And is there like a particular demographic that you designed it for, like older people or younger people?
Kind of middle of the road, I think, mainly because if you get too old, they're just not into technology. And even though it's pretty simple technology, it may be too much. But yeah, I'd probably say it's somewhere between 30s and 40s, something like that.
Cool. Yeah, that definitely sounds like a challenge. What would you say? Was there any particular like obstacles that you had to overcome when you were thinking about the design or trying to make it manufacturable or anything like that?
There's a lot of obstacles with manufacturing nowadays. As everyone knows, supply chain is really, really brutal. But with this one, honestly, we use a lot of commodity electronics. It's got inside of it, it's got a vibration motor. It's got a small circuit board. There's really not a ton to it. It's got a battery. It's rechargeable by USB. We got a little bit lucky on this one in terms of that stuff, whereas we have a lot of other projects that we've been working on that are delayed, months, years type of thing, waiting for components.
So when you're working on a project and there's like a supply chain issue in the design, I mean, do you try to factor that in? You advise the client, let's not use this because I know we're never going to get it from China for the next 9 months.
Yeah. So often when we get into the sourcing and manufacturing stages of the project, which is really at the end, so the design's done, we're kind of sitting there and trying to figure out bill of materials or what's called a BOM. A lot of that is when we'll have that moment of, we might need to change to older USB because the new USB-Cs are not available or something like that.
How frequently is that happening these days? Is it like every other product?
It's interesting. So again, we're really front facing. So we're really working on future concepts. So like the work that we're doing today is going to be for 3 years. It's good. We see a lot of our clients innovating and pushing the limits because we're assuming the supply chain will be fixed by then, or they'll probably be stuff manufactured in a lot of other places than currently are today. Whereas like some of the projects now that we're having issues with are the ones that we designed a year and a half ago. And you can't plan for that, unfortunately. So what's interesting is you just see people going to other places than China, and now because they have to, but there's certain things like certain chips that you just can only get there, and they're in short demand, and it is what it is.
Have you seen any trends of any other particular countries like Vietnam or something becoming more prominent?
Vietnam got really prominent right before COVID, actually, which was interesting. So really like 19, I feel like was a great year for Vietnam. A lot of Chinese companies were moving to Vietnam because it was close and they could move shop over there. Vietnam also, like, they've always been really big in textiles. So anything from clothing to bags, things like that. They started getting more into consumer electronics, I would say, in around 2019. So it has been a nice kind of safe haven to go for manufacturing. They're actually very easy to deal with, and it's a great country to visit. So.
Yeah. So you've been to Vietnam?
I have actually not. I've just lived vicariously through one of our clients' pack bags, and I eat way too much Vietnamese food, and I get to watch, we put together videos of their trips and things like that. But yeah, it's high on my list to hopefully get there.
Yeah, it sounds like a really fascinating place. Definitely, I don't know this year, maybe in future years, I'll be able to get to that myself. So I heard there's some good surfing there too, by the way.
That's another part of my plan. So
exactly.
Hopefully we'll get there soon.
Gotcha. Okay. So you're seeing some trends with manufacturing shifting to other locations, a little bit of like projects from products that were being designed from a couple of years ago. Like people are starting to think, oh no, what are we going to do about these components that we're missing? Is that so stuff is being completely redesigned or just kind of tweaked around the edges, would you say?
No, just tweaked around the edges. And some product launches too are being pushed back. I think what we saw beginning of this year and the end of last year is a lot of those kind of delays. And then a lot of people are shooting for kind of that third quarter launching, holiday, things like that.
Right. The ever important Thanksgiving to Christmas season for things. Yeah.
Exactly. And China's now open, so there's more hope. So.
And do you feel like I've been talking with a lot of people who are concerned on the inflation side that the cost of a lot of things are going up? How is that coming into the design world?
So for us, again, we just do design only. So we don't have our own products to have to deal with. But yeah, a lot of people, you're just seeing product pricing is going up. They try elsewhere first, but it's similar to what you're seeing happening with food and gas, right? And there's only so much that you can do until the price has to go up.
So you're not recommending the gold-plated cases anymore. You've had to stop doing all of that because of the inflation.
No. Although, ironically, some of the really expensive materials that have been sitting for longer because they were so expensive are now affordable. So we are seeing like nicer, what we call CMF, color material finishes, put on the products because you're paying just maybe a couple cents more to go with a nicer finish than you would have previously, just because the ones that were more affordable back in the day are now hard to get and more scarce. And some of the more expensive ones are laying around and the price that come down.
Gotcha. So that's super interesting. What's an example of something like a nicer finish?
Furniture is an interesting one, though. So we were doing a project. This was more for interior and stores, but where we were using a lot of birch ply, and that used to go for, I want to say $45 for a sheet, 4x8 sheet. And basically it went up to $100 and it was $120 to get a sheet of walnut. So much higher end wood. It's crazy how much more affordable that became.
Yeah. So it's almost like if people are kind of thinking about building products with like the materials that they used to think was out of reach, they should reconsider that at this point, because maybe it's just the same price.
Yeah, it all happens in that kind of, we call it our fifth phase, which is like kind of that finalization phase. You're really working, you're like, all right, we've nailed all the materials we want. And then you go and you do that final cost with that bill of materials, and you're looking at options A and B. And yeah, again, for maybe 5% more, you're getting a much nicer finish. Maybe you can bring the price point of the product up higher too, so you can easily compensate for it.
I've been at a factory recently in Indiana, and we were kind of looking at, so they were making these industrial coils, and they were talking about how do they maintain the quality of electrical conductivity with a lower grade metal. And so it's really interesting to see all the different kind of angles that people take to try to keep costs low.
There's a lot of innovation going on, and it's because it's necessary. Like, let's just say they only have a certain amount of copper that they can do, so maybe they try to make it thinner. Like, I'm sure there's lots of different kind of workarounds people are coming up with, and hopefully it'll be for the better too. Stuff we can use forever once they figure it out.
Yeah, maybe more sustainable. Do you see a lot of like clients wanting sustainability in terms of the products?
That's a really big push for us. We've actually just locally we have so many different clients that are working on different levels. Actually, not so much locally, but we started working with Pratt, which is a kind of the largest, I think, U.S. manufacturer of all paper packaging products. They do recycled corrugates to you name it.
And the company's called Pratt, P-R-A-T-T?
Pratt Industries. And they do everything from what you see everything in the moving aisle at Home Depot for those boxes to what comes with, like, if you see like a butcher box and it's like a really insulated corrugate box that comes and it ships in the mail and your meat's still frozen when it gets there. They do a lot of stuff that's recycled. We're working with Kohler faucets and kitchens and bath type things. So they're very, very much in that sustainability kick and just wherever we can trying to do more there.
Now, let me ask you this question. When you think about sustainability, obviously you want the product to be recyclable or be used from recyclable materials, but what about the design? Is there some sort of effort being made to like show people that it's sustainable, like as part of the design so people recognize that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times you can do that with kind of the material and finish I was talking about earlier. So with packaging is a really good example. Obviously, we're going with something that's more cardboard stock with a one color, soy-based ink or something like that. It's very clear, like, oh, this like full color package that used to be completely not recyclable and not made from recycled materials now looks like, actually I have one right here, and now it looks like this, which is crazy. So it's something, got in the mail.
Yeah, I see that. You can look at it. It definitely looks recyclable right off the get-go. Yeah.
It's all the way through, right? And this is for a Ford Bronco. It's like it's a crazy setup. Yeah. Anyways, but very, very much so that looks like it's sustainable. Everything's paper, wood. Materials are much different.
Gotcha. Yeah. So this is a podcast. So just for the people watching at home through the radio, Jordan's showing me a very complicated box that's got a lot of different components, but it really looks like it's got the right color and feel of it to be recyclable. It just says that way. Do you feel like clients, they want to put a big recycling stamp on it so like it's even more obvious?
Well, yeah, I think with the packaging stuff, it's very clear. But again, I was going to say, like with consumer electronics in general, what you're seeing now is a gauge where it's like X amount of bottles saved you might see on an LK sink, right? So it's every time you're filling up your water bottle, they're making it clear, or they might put something across the top of their website to say whatever they've done, for the environment or how their carbon footprint has gone neutral or is going to by the 2025 kind of thing.
Totally. That totally makes sense. I've got this theory that, a lot of companies are investing more in packaging as we've moved to more things being delivered via e-commerce through the mail or whatever sort of shipping area. Have you been seeing that sort of trend as well?
I guess where we see it is it used to be design us a beautiful graphic to put on the package. Now it's design us a beautiful out of the box experience that somebody's going to take their iPhone and do an out of the box, an unboxing and put it on YouTube. So that's what they all want now. So yeah, you definitely see that trend. And there is, I think it's good for everything because there is that they want to see that it's sustainable. There's not a lot of plastic in that packaging. We actually started an organization called Sea Hive, which is all about zero plastic in packaging. And we have a little certification badge that we throw on there for Sea Hive. It's been really, really good. We've done this with a couple of our different clients.
My kind of working hypothesis of today is that every manufacturer, every business wants to be Amazon or Apple. They either want to like get every product to you like in the next hour, just have it automatically show up, or they want it to be so beautifully designed that you just are like in awe of it.
Yeah, those are like the two faux pas for designers. As soon as they hear that, everyone's like, oh, of course, everybody says this. But as a design firm, this is where we push ourselves. So we look at the grades and try to figure out how we can make that experience something for the customers.
And what happens if somebody shows up and they're like my friends in the electrical conduit business, and they're like, we want it to be like Apple. How do you work with them on something like that?
Yeah, we're probably going to have to pick that one apart. Is it the actual customer experience that you're talking about? Is the product? Is it actually the way that they're using the electrical conduit? You got to kind of do a little bit of research in to see how that works for their business. So it could just be a really slick website.
Yeah, could be. It's about creating the right perception.
It's funny, we work in the cannabis space as well, and we've had, depending on the different dispensaries or cultivation facilities, they have different.
You said cannabis. I thought you said Canada space, and I'm like, oh, the Great White North. But no, cannabis. Yes.
Cannabis, and it's interesting because some of them are very into the agriculture and like that's what they're all about, and others are very into the tech and the use of the fact that they're like zero carbon footprint and they've got solar panels all over the top of the building and this and that. So that goes into branding them. And some of them, we've had one that said, hey, I want it to feel like Apple when you walk into our store. So we went with a very white, clean aesthetic. And I would say we gave them what they were looking for there. Same thing with their website and their logo. So.
Now, in the cannabis space, are you designing like cannabis devices too?
We've done that. Not so much vapes. It's kind of a little bit of a conflict of interest and things like that. But we've actually been working on security devices. We've had a few different takes at that. So safes that either basically will keep children away from it, where we played with that. We've had a lot of requests to work in kind of the vape device space, but we haven't done any of that yet. And then also childproof packaging. So actually just physical packaging, different mechanisms, whether it's pushing down on the bottle cap, which everybody knows, but different ways to do that as well.
That's really interesting. I had a guy who pitched me a concept of a camera inside a liquor cabinet so that every time it opens up, you can see who opens it up, just in case the teenagers get into it. I thought that was a little bit over the top, but.
So our highest end model when we were working on this project was basically the size of a humidor, and it actually had a camera that was inside of it. And, it wasn't so much, I guess it was just keeping track of your stuff and making sure your kids aren't in there, but
making sure with the cannabis that you remember that you were in the cabinet and had it later. You're like, what happened here? Oh, that was me. Yeah. So this is sort of an interesting field, right? Because a whole new industry is being created with all kinds of different ideas, right?
It's really great. I compare it to like craft brewing like 20 years ago. And so it's different because it's a drug and it's not alcohol. But the other side of it is that it's really gray space for design. And so you can shape it and mold it into stuff. And it's becoming more ubiquitous and more states are coming online and whatnot. But you just got a blank canvas to do whatever you want, both graphically and physically. And with that experience, if you get to the point, so we've done everything from naming them, doing the strategy for the place itself, then helping to design the showroom, and getting into the brand and the packaging and all of the promo gear that goes with them.
Cool. Well, Jordan, this has been really interesting. I'm hoping that listeners get a sense of like the importance of design when they're thinking about creating new products or even changing old products. That's another thing. Taking existing product lines and updating them. I'm sure that's something that you see a lot of as well.
Totally. And one thing, it's funny, you just mentioned that, but like the importance of design. So we spoke on it earlier before we started this, but I was thinking in leading up to this, like probably the most interesting, I would say, trend in my business as a design, in a small to medium-sized design firm that we've seen is that every other recession, whether back in 2000, it was like the dot-com blew up and the product design world fell apart. We had nothing to do with it. It wasn't fair. Then it was 2008. It was the same thing. I mean, there was other reasons for that crash. All these places you can see your business do a dramatic dip. Well, this time, which is literally just in the last year or so, we've seen it kind of go the other way, or even since COVID started, where companies, with COVID, it was the first year everybody was just like, what's going to happen? But on the second side of it, people just realize like they have to innovate. Design is that major differentiator for the brand and how they're going to come out. And so for the first time in kind of 3 different dips in the economy, we're finally seeing like design's not the first thing getting cut any longer, which is really nice to see.
Totally makes sense, right? Like if you can't look different, as your product doesn't look different to people, there's 1,000 choices on Amazon. All of them look exactly the same. If yours looks better, that's a big differentiator.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's nice. And I feel like it's gotten, at least in the United States, people have taken note of this. And it really is, I guess, the biggest differentiator in a lot of these brands, especially a lot of the startups. Yeah,
definitely. And I definitely am seeing more and more companies on the industrial side thinking about that as well. Predominantly on the packaging, because there's not a lot you can do with the electric conduit and stuff like that. But yeah, Definitely seeing a lot of innovation about just how people are thinking. We work with a lot of family businesses. And I think what's happened as well is that younger generations are starting to take over some of these more industrial firms. And they just grew up in the world where design was part of the experience in a way that maybe our father's generation didn't see it that way.
Exactly. The typical is typically you're led by sales and marketing one. And if it's an engineering founded company, sometimes engineering. So it's really nice to see kind of design taking the lead all of a sudden.
Well, is there any advice that you would give people out there when they're thinking about creating the next generation of products or revamping their existing product lines?
Yeah, this one's a tough one. It's specific kind of to the industries, of course. But I mean, I think for me, it's really getting your elevator pitch down to the firm that you want to hire. Like, what is it? And try to distill it down to one page of what you want to do. You don't need to go and write a giant brief because quite honestly, like that'll get thrown out the window once you start the process. But really just being really focused on exactly what it is that you're trying to achieve. Is it just product based or is this your business decision and you need to move everything because some technology we're currently doing is going out of just going away?
Yeah, no, I think that's super important. Like start with the end in mind. Why do you want to redo it? Why do you want to think about the design differently? Well, what are we trying to achieve? Not just like, oh, I had this great idea. What's going to happen if we do that? You know?
Exactly.
Cool. Well, this has been awesome. I really enjoyed chatting with you and getting your perspective on all of this. Hopefully we can plan that trip to Vietnam coming up soon. Let's do it. I think for a lot of people thinking about products out there in the world, I think the importance of design is just going to be increasingly more important. I don't think it's going to slow down. I think it's going to accelerate. So I think that this concept is super important. But just for our listeners out there, as a reminder, you can find every episode of the Make It, Move It, Sell It podcast at spiro.ai/podcast. And I would challenge anybody to try to say that 3 times fast. But please, if you liked this episode today, if you thought that Jordan and I were having a good conversation, please maybe give us a good rating or subscribe and maybe let some other people know about what we're talking about here. Jordan, you think that's a good idea?
Sounds good to me.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We're looking forward to the next episode.